3 weeks ago, I was sleeping in my rusted Honda Civic behind a Walmart, wrapped in yesterday's newspaper like a man trying to hide from his own story. The night security guard would tap the window every few hours, and I'd drive to another corner of the lot, pretending I still had somewhere to be, pretending I wasn't homeless, pretending my life hadn't already caved in on itself. My wife, Lena, had taken everything in the divorce the house I'd rebuilt with my own hands, every cent in our savings, and Shadow, my German Shepherd, who'd been my quiet companion through 7 long years. She got the home, the dog, the future. I got a car that smelled like old coffee and a pile of clothes that still carried her detergent scent. Then, one night at 2 a.m., my phone lit up with a message that rewrote my world. Unknown number. My first thought, another collector chasing the dead of a man already broken, but the words made my hands tremble. Mr. Caleb Mercer, we've been monitoring your situation. Your father wasn't who you think he was. Nathaniel Mercer built a $73 million empire under a false name. He left it all to you. But first, you must fulfill his final wish. Time is running out. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. My name is Caleb Mercer, 38 years old, former warehouse supervisor at Belmont Freight and Storage, where I'd given 12 years of my life. My boss, Harlan Belmont, was everything I thought a man should be: polished, respected, sharp. He hired me young, mentored me, even vouched for my house loan. I trusted him like the father I'd lost too soon. That trust died the moment I opened his office door and saw Lena, my wife, tangled around him, her hands clutching the collar of the man who had once called me son. He fired me the next day, told HR was trespassing and aggression when I stood frozen in the doorway, too stunned to swing, too numb to shout. 3 weeks later, I had nothing. No wife, no job, no home, no dog, no name that meant anything. Just that message about my father and the whisper of a fortune buried beneath a lifetime of lies. Until that night, I'd believed my life was plain but honest. A modest home in suburban Detroit, a job supervising 40 men under flickering fluorescent lights, a wife I'd loved since high school chemistry, when she'd drawn a crooked heart beside my name on her notebook. My father, Nathaniel Mercer, died when I was 15, a car wreck on I-75 during an ice storm, they said. I remember the officer who came to our door, hat in hand, eyes fixed on the floor as if the truth was too heavy to carry upright. Mom never recovered. She'd sit in Dad's recliner every night, staring at his photograph like she could summon him with grief alone. She told me he was a janitor at Street Luke's hospital, a man who scrubbed operating rooms so his son could have a better life. Your daddy worked double shifts, she'd whisper. Came home with his hands raw from bleach, but he never complained. He said honest work might not make you rich, but it lets you sleep easy. She passed 5 years ago, pancreatic cancer, just like her mother. In her final days, she sometimes called me Nathaniel, holding my hand like she was holding his. She died on a Tuesday while I was at work, and I've never stopped wishing I'd stayed home that day. I'd built my entire life on my father's simple creed: work hard, stay humble, and treat people right. It wasn't a roadmap to riches, but it was supposed to be enough for a good man's peace of mind. I lived by that rule the way some men live by scripture. I met Lena Carter when I was 17, the girl with the restless smile who turned every hallway into her stage. We married at 22, still kids pretending to know what forever meant. She was luminous in that way that drew eyes a second she entered a room, golden hair, catching sunlight like it was made for her, eyes shifting between gray and green depending on her mood. When she laughed, the sound-filled spaces I didn't even know were empty. She worked the front desk at a dental office downtown, always coming home with wild stories, patients fainting in the chair, kids biting the dentist, root canals gone sideways. I'd listen like it was gospel, watching her wave her hands in the air when she got caught up in her own stories. Our house on 1847 Maple Street wasn't anything special, a squat 1,960 seconds ranch with peeling aluminum siding and a driveway that cracked a little more each winter. But it was ours, and I'd spent every weekend turning it into something she could love. I tore out the old cabinets and built new ones from scratch, guided by YouTube videos and stubborn pride. I sanded the floors till they gleamed, tiled both bathrooms, and built a wooden deck out back where we'd grill on summer evenings while the streetlights flickered on one by one. Shadow came along 4 years into our marriage. Lena said she wanted a dog for protection, but really she just wanted someone to keep her company when I worked late. We found him at a shelter, a German Shepherd pup with one floppy ear and eyes too serious for his age. He grew into 90 pounds of loyal muscle, but never lost that babyish fear of thunder or his love for belly rubs. At Belmont Freight and Storage, I'd clawed my way up from sweeping floors to running shifts, 12 years of sweat and swallowed pride. The warehouse was a living thing, 100,000 square feet of motion and noise, forklifts humming like restless insects, the air thick with dust and diesel. I knew every inch of it, every dock, every blind corner, every trick the younger guys used to steal a few minutes' rest. Harlan Belmont, the man whose name sat above the doors, had inherited the company but turned it into a machine 3 times the size. He was everything I thought I wanted to become: sharp suits, silver Mercedes, handshake like a promise. He'd taken a liking to me early on, told me I reminded him of himself back when he was still hungry. "Caleb," he'd say during reviews, "you've got instinct. Keep your head down, stay loyal, and you'll be running your own operation one day." And I believed him. I believed all of it, that decency still mattered, that patience paid off, that the American dream hadn't been buried, just waiting for men like me to dig it out with calloused hands. That Tuesday morning, I remember sipping burnt coffee in the kitchen, the sunlight pale against the sink, brushing a strand of hair from Lena's face as she slept. I thought I was standing in the middle of a quiet, ordinary life. I didn't know it was the last morning I'd ever feel safe in it. The warehouse was wrong that morning, too quiet, too still. At 6 a.m., it was usually alive with motion. Forklifts humming like restless bees, men shouting inventory numbers across aisles, the metallic clang of pallets on concrete. But that Tuesday it felt abandoned. Only one car sat in the parking lot, Harlan Belmont's silver Mercedes, gleaming in the dawn light like it didn't belong to this world of grit and diesel. I checked my phone, no messages, no schedule changes, nothing. I pushed through the employee door. My footsteps echoed off the loading dock walls, the sound swallowed by a silence that felt deliberate, the kind that waits. Tommy Kowalski and his crew should have been there prepping the first deliveries, but the place was hollow. I had that crawling feeling, the one you get walking into a house that's already seen something terrible. Then I heard it. Laughter, soft and familiar, drifting from the offices upstairs, not just any laughter, hers, Lena's laugh. That sound had once been the center of my world, like wind chimes caught in summer air. But she was supposed to be asleep. She didn't work Tuesdays. So why was she here in his office at dawn? Each step up the metal staircase felt like walking into a fire I'd built myself. My mind whispered, "Turn around, Caleb. Leave." But my body moved forward anyway, pulled by some grim gravity toward the truth. The hallway to Harlan's office stretched out like a tunnel. His door was open just enough to see. She was on his desk, skirt pushed up, legs wrapped around his waist, his hands in her hair, the same hair I'd touched only hours before. They didn't hear me, didn't see me until the coffee cup slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor. The sound sliced through the moment. They froze, two people stripped of their illusions. Lena's face drained of color, then flushed red. Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish pulled from water. Harlan straightened his tie, his shock already hardening into that corporate mask I'd seen 100 times the face of a man who never loses control. "Caleb," she started, sliding off the desk, fumbling with her skirt. "This isn't what it looks like." My voice cracked as I answered, "Really? Because it looks exactly like what it looks like." "We weren't," she stammered, "we weren't having sex." As if the word itself mattered. As if betrayal came in different doses. "How long?" I asked. No one spoke. Harlan stepped forward slightly, positioning himself between us, the way a man guards property he thinks he owns. "Caleb, let's talk about this like adults," he said evenly. "You're emotional right now." "How long?" I repeated louder. My fists clenched without permission. Lena looked at him, then at me. Her voice was almost a whisper. 6 months. "C-month?" Every late night she said she was working late. Every weekend Harlan asked me to cover extra shifts. Every company dinner where they smiled at me like nothing was wrong. 6 months of lies built brick by brick while I broke my back for the house she lived in, the car she drove, the life I thought was ours. "You son of a—" I took a step forward. "I trusted you. I looked up to you." His eyes turned cold steel. "And that's your problem, Caleb," he said. "You trust too easily. You still think the world rewards good men. It doesn't. It rewards those who take what they want." In that moment, everything I'd built, every belief, every promise, cracked like glass under a boot. It rewards people who take what they want, I said, my voice shaking. Like taking another man's wife. Holland didn't flinch. I didn't take anything, he said coolly. She came to me, told me how unhappy she was, how trapped she felt in a life going nowhere. Face it, Caleb, you're a warehouse supervisor. That's all you'll ever be. Lena deserves better. The rage that rose in me was volcanic, raw. My hands trembled with the urge to strike him, to erase that smug calm from his face. But before I could move, he raised his hand not in fear but in command. I wouldn't do that if I were you, he said evenly. You're in my office without permission. You're behaving aggressively. You're creating a hostile work environment. He pulled out his phone. Security's already on their way up. And Caleb, you're fired. Effective immediately. 10 minutes to clear your locker. If you ever come back here, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. You can't do this, I said, though I already knew he could. He smiled thinly. I just did. And don't even think about fighting it. My lawyers will bury you. That was the moment everything broke. The next 3 weeks blurred together paperwork, courthouse walls, empty accounts, and nights spent shivering behind the wheel of my car. Lena filed for divorce the very next day. Her lawyer found me at the cheap motel I'd crawled into after being thrown out. Turns out she'd been planning it all for months, consultations, documentation, bank transfers, a surgical betrayal. She painted me as the distant husband who cared more about overtime than love. The judge didn't even look at me like I was human. She gave Lena the house, citing her emotional contribution. My savings account, joint in both names, had been drained the day she filed. She even took shadow, claiming I worked too much to properly care for a dog. The last image I have of him is through a fog car window, his paw scratching at the glass, his eyes wide and confused as Lena drove away. Harlan kept his word, too. His influence spread through Detroit's logistics network like a quiet poison. Every interview started with smiles and handshakes, ended with polite rejection after one reference check. By the third week, I was selling the life I'd built piece by piece, the tools I'd used to build our deck, the watch Lena gave me on our 5th anniversary, finally my father's wedding ring, the one my mother had kept after he died. The pawn shop owner didn't even look me in the eye as he counted out $40 for it. $40 for 25 years of devotion. That night, I was parked behind Walmart again, trying to twist my spine into some position that didn't make me ache. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, assuming another debt collector was circling the carcass. But some instinct made me look. Mr. Caleb Mercer, we've been monitoring your situation. Your father wasn't who you believed. Meet us tomorrow at Garrison and Associates Law Firm, 1500 Woodward Avenue, Detroit, 9 a.m. sharp. This concerns an inheritance. Come alone. I read it 5 times. Then a 6th. A scam, surely. Some cruel trick meant for desperate men. My father had been dead 23 years. But what did I have left to lose? I was a man sleeping in a rusted Civic, showering at the gym until my membership expired, living off dollar menu meals and loose change. If it was a joke, at least it would be a warm one. The next morning, I pulled on my last clean shirt, the one I'd been saving for job interviews that never called back. The building at 1500 Woodward Avenue towered like a monument to everything I wasn't, 40 stories of glass and steel reflecting a city still learning to forgive itself. As I pushed through the revolving doors, I half expected security to stop me, point toward my battered Honda Civic, and tell me to leave the world of polished shoes and real coffee to those who belonged here. Harrison and Associates owned the top 3 floors. The elevator ride felt eternal, my reflection shrinking into steel as the numbers climbed. The receptionist looked up as I stepped out, a woman with silver hair, kind eyes behind designer glasses. Mr. Vale? She asked before I could speak. They're expecting you. Conference room 12, straight through. The room was bigger than the house I'd lost, floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing over the gray shimmer of the Detroit River. 3 people waited at a table that gleamed like water under sunlight. They stood as I entered. Money, power, certainty, each of them wore it like perfume. Mr. Vale, said the older man, extending a hand. I'm Nathaniel Harrison. This is Miss Alina Cross, private investigator, and Miss Rosa Devereaux, estate attorney. Please sit. My hands trembled as I lowered myself into the chair. What is this? If it's some kind of joke, I should tell you I've got nothing left to take. Miss Cross opened the leather folder and slid a photograph toward me. Do you recognize this man? It was my father, but not the man I'd buried. Gone was the hospital janitor's uniform. In its place, a dark tailored suit, eyes sharper, posture commanding, standing before a vast industrial complex. Behind him, a sign read, Reeves Industrial Solutions. The date in the corner was 1 year before his death. That's my father, I said slowly. But that can't be right. He was a janitor at Detroit General. Your father was Eugene Vale publicly, Miss Devereaux said softly. But he was also Mitchell Reeves, founder and CEO of Reeves Industrial Solutions. The company is currently valued at $73 million. The room tilted. My fingers clutched the table's edge like it could anchor me to something true. That's impossible. We lived in a two-bedroom apartment. My mother clipped coupons. We couldn't even afford a new water heater. All necessary deceptions, Harrison said. Your father was involved in classified government contracts. When threats arose against his family, he chose to vanish, rebuilding his life under a new identity to keep you safe. Miss Cross spread a collection of photographs across the table. Each one tore a hole in the version of my life I thought I knew: board meetings, factory floors, handshakes with officials. Then she placed another set before me, grainy surveillance photos. My high school graduation, a janitor sweeping in the background. My wedding day, a maintenance worker fixing a door behind me and Alara as we said our vows. My first day at Belmont Logistics, a man in coveralls sitting in a parked van, pretending to read a newspaper. He was there, I whispered, touching the wedding photo. He was always there. Every major moment, Miss Devereaux said. He couldn't be your father in the open, but he never stopped watching over you. Harrison cleared his throat. The company has been held in trust since his passing, managed by a board waiting for this moment. But your father left instructions, personal ones. To claim your inheritance, you must complete one final task. He handed me a sealed envelope. My father's handwriting curved across it, steady, deliberate. Elias, my son, if you are reading this, then my greatest fear and hope have both come true. Fear that pain would find you before truth did. Hope that pain would teach you what comfort never could. To claim what I've built. The words blurred before my eyes, heavy with the weight of every lie I'd mistaken for love. You must first give away what I've left. In Detroit, there's a community center called Haven House. It's failing, about to close. Save it. Not with money you don't have yet. Save it with what you are, not what you have. You have 30 days. Only when you learn that power isn't what you possess, but what you provide, will you be ready for the responsibility of my legacy. I lowered the letter, its words ringing louder than any sermon. Haven House, the shelter on the east side where the city's forgotten slept and prayed. It needs $50,000 to avoid foreclosure, said Miss Devereaux, watching me carefully. Due in 25 days. Your father was clear. You cannot use the inheritance. You won't receive it until you complete the task. I laughed, but there was no humor left in me. My current resources? I've got $300 to my name and a Civic I sleep in. How the hell am I supposed to save anything? That, said Harrison, rising, is for you to figure out. We'll be watching just as your father did. You have 25 days. I drove straight to Haven House, my father's letter burning like a brand in my pocket. The building looked worse than I remembered, windows patched with cardboard, roof sagging from years of neglect, the smell of mildew and exhaustion thick in the air. Inside, behind a dented metal counter, stood Deacon Miles, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran with shoulders like stone and eyes that still held the battlefield. Help you? He asked, stirring a pot of soup on 3 wheezing burners. I want to help you, I said quietly. I heard you're closing. He let out a rough, tired laugh. Friday's our last day, unless a miracle walks through that door with 50 grand. Bank's already signed the order. 15 years we've fed families here, but that don't matter much to them. That night, I slept in my car outside Haven House, the letter clutched in my hand. Save it with what you are, not what you have. What was I? A man who'd lost everything? A husband whose wife walked away? A name without meaning? No, I was a warehouse man who knew how to move, build, and organize. A man who'd rebuilt a home with his own hands. Someone who'd spent 12 years making systems work when everything else was chaos. The next morning I started calling everyone I knew, not for money but for favors. Tommy Kowalski picked up on the second ring. Elias, man, I heard what Belmont did to you. That's cold. Tommy, I need your help. Not for me, for Haven House. They need repairs, supplies, labor. Remember when I got your job back after that failed drug test? He went quiet for a second. You saved my life, man. Been clean ever since. What do you need? Within 3 days, I had an army. Contractors I'd once helped get steady work through Belmont. Electricians I'd paid early so they could make rent. Roofers, plumbers, painters, people whose paths I'd crossed without realizing I was investing in something more valuable than a savings account. They came like angels with tool belts. Roofers worked under the moon. Electricians rewired the kitchen for free. Plumbers fixed every leak. A contractor I'd helped during his divorce brought 20 men, transforming the main hall in a single day. By day 20, Haven House was reborn, but we were still short. The $50,000 that the bank demanded loomed like a verdict. That's when Craig Belmont walked in. He looked nothing like the polished executive who'd ruined my life. Jeans and old t-shirt, eyes hollow from nights without sleep. For the first time, he looked human. Come to gloat? I asked, not stopping my roller as I painted the final wall. He shook his head. No, Elara left me yesterday. Took $500,000 and some proprietary files. My lawyers say she recorded our private conversations about the tax evasion. I laughed loud, sharp, echoing through the hall. Karma finally punched your clock, huh? He smiled faintly, defeated. Elias, I came here because I was wrong about you. He pulled out a check, $50,000, for Haven House, no strings. I froze. Why would you do that? Because for 3 weeks, I've been trying to hire your workers. Every one of them told me the same thing. They were too busy helping you save this place. You inspired more loyalty sleeping in your car than I've ever earned with my wealth. He set the check gently on a paint can. Your father would be proud, Elias. However he made his fortune, he raised a better man than he was, better than I am. The room was quiet, except for the sound of fresh paint, drying a silence heavy with redemption. As Belmont's silver Mercedes rolled away, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days. Deacon Miles shuffled toward me, his weathered hands trembling, eyes glistening with tears. You did it, son, he whispered. You saved us. I didn't have words. Just the hum of the city beyond the broken windows, the faint laughter of children echoing through newly painted halls. That evening, as twilight stretched across Detroit, Amora Jeff appeared at the doorway. Her coat swayed like a shadow of judgment and grace. Congratulations, Mr. Vale, she said softly. You fulfilled your father's condition. I stared at her, exhausted, confused. What was the real test, Amora? Craig's money saved Haven House. I didn't earn that. She smiled, the kind of smile that carries both truth and kindness. Your father's instructions were never about the money. He wanted you to save Haven House. Yes, but more than that. He wanted you to understand. Wealth isn't just what sits in a bank. It's trust, loyalty, community. Craig only wrote that check because of who you are, because of the man you've been all along. You built a network of people willing to fight for something simply because you once fought for them. That, Mr. Vale, is the foundation of real success. 6 months later, I stood in my father's old office, now mine, overlooking the sunrise spilling over the Reeves Industrial Complex, newly renamed Vale Industrial Solutions. We'd dropped the aliases and reclaimed the truth my father had buried to keep me safe. His deception had been his burden, but also his gift. He'd hidden his empire so I could grow in the soil of ordinary life. He gave me simplicity so I'd learn compassion, humility, humanity. Haven House now thrives on a permanent endowment from the company. Every week, Deacon sends me photos, children bent over homework in the new after-school program, veterans learning computer skills in the training lab, families sharing warm meals under lights that never flicker. Half the crew that rebuilt the place now works for Vale Industrial, earning triple what they made before. And me? I kept the old Honda Civic. It sits in my garage, beside a new truck, not for nostalgia, but for perspective. Some nights I still sleep in it, not because I have to, but because it reminds me that everything can be taken except who you are at your core. Duke is home again, too. After proving Elara abandoned him when Belmont tired of dog hair on his suits, I won full custody. He's older now, slower, but his loyalty hasn't aged a day. Every morning, we walk the company grounds, passed the memorial I built for Eugene Vale, the janitor who mopped hospital floors so his son could one day build foundations. A month after reopening Haven House, Rosa Devereaux handed me a final package from my father, a video recorded weeks before his death. On screen, he looked nothing like the janitor I remembered, but everything like the man I now understood. Elias, he said, his voice thin but steady, I gave you poverty so you'd understand wealth. I gave you obscurity so you'd understand meaning. I gave you loss so you'd understand what truly endures. Any man can leave money behind. I wanted to leave wisdom. Your worth was never in your wallet, my son. It was in the kindness you offered to a worker no one noticed, in the way you lifted others even when you were falling yourself. The money's just a tool. You are the fortune I'm leaving the world. The message that began it, all that strange text on a night when I was broken and sleeping behind a Walmart, still sits starred in my phone. Whenever the weight of million-dollar decisions begins to crush me, I read it again. And I remember 3 weeks in a car taught me more about success than 12 years of steady paychecks ever did. True wealth isn't measured by what you can lose, but by what you can still give when you've lost everything. Sometimes the greatest fortune arrives disguised as your worst failure. You just have to survive long enough to read the message that changes everything